Welcome to my presentation about validity and reliability, sections 14.1 to 14.5 in Research Methods in Education by Cohen, Mannion, and Morrison. My name's Olivia Vaughn. So I will be focusing mostly on validity, as those were the sections that I was covering, and we will be looking at validity in qualitative, quantitative, and mixed method research. We will also be talking about the different types of validity. I found this specific graphic helpful in going through the chapter and talking about both what reliability and validity means and what they are both trying to accomplish. So, why is validity important? Cohen, Mannion, and Morrison start out by talking about the importance of validity and that if research is invalid, it is worthless. This could be open to interpretation of what validity means in terms of research. Is it how we interpret data, or what claims seem to be true? But these three authors have stated that a piece of research is valid if the warrants that underpin it are defensible, and thereby, if the conclusions drawn and explanations can stand their ground. This would be very similar to warrants. Even through abstract and theoretical constructs, the understanding of validity is important. This made me connect to the relevance of research. Is what you're trying to prove already a common truth among society? Personally, this made me draw upon current discussions in climate change and whether arguments against it could be considered valid in 10 years' time. Similar to historical beliefs that the Earth was flat, this would be an invalid study to conduct, as research has already proven this to be untrue. Because validity is defined in such different terms depending on the type of research conducted, it is important to engage the issue, such as knowledge and understanding of being, but limit discussions of validity. There are four main types of validity, as you see on the screen here: construct validity, statistical conclusion validity, internal validity, and external validity. Within these categories, there are also very different kinds of validity. Cohen, Mannion, and Morrison note that there are too many factors for research to be 100% valid or perfect. Researchers are rather encouraged to be as precise as possible. To me, I connected this to the idea of personal bias. As a researcher, you want to keep things as neutral as possible, but ensuring that in some way bias isn't involved is impossible. In any study, the interest in spending time and effort, and even to be a researcher, being personally involved in finding some insight and truth in a certain subject, involves some sort of personal element. I found this graphic helpful in understanding the questions which relate to each type of validity. So first we're going to talk about validity in quantitative research. So in most cases, validity in quantitative research involves following assumptions and underpinnings in research. Validity in quantitative research attempts to adhere to the following features: controllability, replicability, consistency, predictability, randomization of samples, neutrality or objectivity, observability, or original statements about behavior. Because validity relies on researchers being faithful to underpinnings and assumptions, Shadish again notes that statistical conclusion validity may be therefore threatened in several different ways. The example I chose of ways data could be skewed was that there could be a wide variability in the outcomes of measure. And I think this is important to understand because of how large range in data could affect results and precise nature of questions trying to be asked. When looking at validity in qualitative research, we look at the principles of qualitative research, which are found on page 247. In later discussions, Cohen, Mannion, and Morrison discussed differing opinions on the definition of validity through qualitative research. Researchers discuss the power of the word validity and suggest words like understanding, authenticity, fidelity to be synonyms of validity, though none agree on the precise language. One thing researchers do agree on is the common ground between qualitative and quantitative validity, and that they are not mutually exclusive. On page 249 of Research Methods in Education, Cohen, Mannion, and Morrison compare what validity is based on the two methods in a graphic, which gives a good overview of the two methods with practical applications of validity. As mixed methods research uses both qualitative and quantitative research methods, it therefore has to conform to collective procedures which are not alike. Validity has its own terminology, meaning, and different types of legitimation. Cohen, Mannion, and Morrison discuss problems with mixed method research and what it must overcome. So they talk about representation, using largely or only words and pictures to catch the dynamics of lived experiences and unfolding emergent situations, legitimation, ensuring that the results are dependable, credible, transferable, plausible, confirmable, and trustworthy, and integration, using and combining qualitative and quantitative methods, each with their own and sometimes antagonistic canons of validity. Researchers argue about specifics of legitimation in mixed methods research and whether it should be a broader embrace of validity. Next, we'll be looking at the types of validity. I have paraphrased each to signify my understanding of what each of the types of validity mean. So starting with internal validity. So internal validity is the explanation of a particular event, issue, or set of data which a piece of research can actually be sustained. So was the research done correctly, and were all attempts to minimize influences taken? External validity, which will refer to the degree to which the results can be generalized to transfer findings. Can these findings be understood in different ways and in different contexts referring to this topic? Construct validity. How much a test measures what it is claiming to be measuring. Does how I am measuring this construct accurately relate to the methodological factors? Next one is content validity. How much a measure represents all part of a study. As Cohen, Mannion, and Morrison use as an example, does the research sample address, for example, breadth and depth needed to accurately represent all parts of the study? Next, we look at convergent and discriminant validity. Both are parts of construct validity, demonstrated when factors should relate or shouldn't to one another. So in terms of convergent, we look at when two things should relate to each other and do, or discriminant, which requires two or more unrelated items or attributes to be shown to be unrelated or to be different from each other. Then next we look at criterion-related validity and how much the measurement being used relates to the outcome. This can be split into concurrent validity, which implies that data gathered from using one instrument must correlate highly with data gathered from using another instrument. Predictive validity can also predict one score from the other using similar data. Next, we look at catalytic validity, which Cohen, Mannion, and Morrison define as research leads to action in terms of social change or agenda. Did the agenda proposed by the study push further change, for example, in feminist theory or other social theorems? Next, we have consequential validity. What are the consequences of the research, and how is the research used? Did the consequence of the research keep the intentions of the research in the first place? We look at cross-cultural validity and how it seeks to seeks to understand the extent to which there are differences and similarities between cultural norms and members. So was the data affected by cultural differences? After we look at cultural validity, the assessment of the appreciation of the cultural values for those being researched. So are researchers ensuring that the research is appropriate to the culture being researched? And lastly, we look at ecological validity, how policies in the study affect real life. And are these understandings of how the findings and information transferable to real life? So what conclusions have I drawn from this chapter? Well, validity is paramount in research, in that if it is not true, applicable, or valid, there is no point in conducting the data. By paying attention to the types of validity relevant to research, researchers can avoid having their work being considered invalid. Validity is concerned with the accuracy of information in all types of research methodology, and through the different types of validity, we see that it searches for accurate understanding. Give you some idea of my references and my secondary references. Thank you very much for spending the time listening to my presentation. Have a great evening.